Welcome to the channel. I've recently found myself in need of a crude oil transfer pump. Now this pump has to meet certain requirements. It's got to be mobile. I need to be able to easily load it and take it out on jobs. And it has to be driven by a gas-powered engine. Now somewhere in my vast collection, I have got one of these things. So now it's just going to be a matter of finding it, fixing it, because I'm confident it's not going to run given how long it's been since I've used it. And then we'll see if we can get this thing going. Let's check it out. So what I'm trying to do here is put me some type of pump onto one of these 300-gallon totes. It's going to be the same basic concept as this pump I've got on the back of this tanker, and it draws the crude up out of the tanker, and of course it'll have to be gas powered. Out where I'm going there's not electricity, so it doesn't need to be this big though. Basically a smaller version of this, something that's very portable that I can hook up onto one of those totes. So after digging around for about a half hour, I remembered I had some junk in this boat under this tarp. And then when I went in here to look, I spotted the pump I'm after. I have a 5 horsepower Briggs & Stratton. Who knows the last time that thing ran? I mean, it's been, I bet it's been 5-6 years easy. We have here the adapter that goes with it, and the business end of the pump under there, hard to see. So I'm going to dig this heavy sucker out and put it up on my workbench, which is that 12-foot flatbed. All right, I got everything over here in the shade on my mobile workbench. I think I'm in better shape than I recall. It's been a number of years since I laid eyes on this thing, but it all looks to be complete. I've got my adapter. So basically how this would work is this is a gear pump. This is a Roper gear pump, and it's a smaller version of what I got on that tanker over there. Handles crude oil very well. And basically what we'll do is we'll hook this end up to the drain on one of them totes and through this adapter, and then we'll connect a fire hose to this side, which I use for oil. Those canvas fire hoses, they have like a rubber liner inside of them, and they hold up really well for crude oil service, in case you were ever in need of a crude oil hose. I'm not sure why you would be, but and then from here it'll go up to the I'll probably be pumping into that tanker or a producer's tank battery, one or the other. And so just my initial assessment of this thing, I could hear when I was moving it, it does have gasoline in it. That's not a good sign, because it's probably ethanol gas. And I bet it is so rancid in this tank. May end up having to pull this tank off and clean it. Let's give it the old smell test. Oh yeah, that smells like glue, like epoxy. That is ethanol epoxy. So that tank will probably have to come off. I'm sure the carburetor will need to be cleaned. Curious configuration here. The tank is mounted underneath the carburetor. I'm assuming there's a diaphragm in there that acts as some type of fuel pump. I don't ever like to see stuff like that on this old junk. I would rather the tank be up here like the Hondas and just gravity feed into that thing, so I don't have to worry about a fuel pump. But anyway, let's see here. It's not locked up. Pump's turning. I can hear suction going on over here. It does appear that the engine is loose. So it's mounted to this board. This thing is meant to be mobile, easy to pick up and go. It's really not that easy because it's heavy as all get out and there's no handles. We might do something about that. The throttle linkage Oh man, I almost dropped. Throttle linkage is here, I guess, so you can operate it remotely. It was like that when I got it. I'm not sure what this engine originally was even on, but the throttle linkage is a little stiff. Choke linkage is free. So yeah, I think we're just going to tear into it and see if we can't get it going. All right, I transitioned to the shop to be closer to my tools, so you can do that with a mobile workbench. So doing some testing, realized I did not have spark, so I thought I would check on the coil, pulled off this cover, and you can see all this in here. It's a good thing I did. It was just mulching and digesting dirt dauber nest. And this little engine's kind of a nightmare. I mean, it's just overly complicated for what it is. This carburetor is totally foreign to me. I've never seen one that was set up quite like this. Of course, I'm not a small engine man, nor do I want to be one. But I thought I could simply clean this carburetor, clean the fuel tank, resolve whatever issues keeping this from getting fire, and be pretty much ready to go. But this thing's been modified. I don't know what its last life was prior to being a pump engine. There's a nightmare bunch of linkages all down. I think the original throttle may have been under here. Of course, now that has been bypassed and we've got this cable rigged up over to here. So I've got to figure out, and the linkages are real stiff. I'm going to oil them all up, clean everything, of course, and just kind of go from there. But yeah, I mean, worst case scenario, if I get tired of messing with this thing, I guess I'll just go buy another engine. They can't be, it's a 5-horse, it can't be terribly expensive. Best I can tell, this was likely a tiller engine, given its horizontal shaft, but you know, just as small as it is, that would be my guess, but who knows? They could have used it on a number of things. But yeah, I'm just going to keep plugging along here, see if I can make some progress. Now we've got fire. So yeah, what I had to do was I pulled the coil, took some emery cloth, and polished up the pickup and these mounts, and polished the exterior of the flywheel. And now also cleaned the spark plug. Now we got fire. So then I thought I'd move on to the fuel system. And this little unit here is something I haven't ever seen before, which is not surprising because I hate messing with small engines to start with. But I was trying to find a fuel line, and there's not one. And the carburetor is mounted directly on the fuel tank, and it does not have a bowl. It's the body of the carburetor is mounted onto the fuel tank. So I opened up in here, and if you can see that right down in there, that is a pickup tube. What would be the bowl is inside the fuel tank, but there's it's not a traditional bowl. There's a shroud around the body of the carburetor, and that pickup tube goes directly up to the main jet, and it basically, when this engine's turning over, it's sucking the fuel up directly out of the tank to process through the carburetor. And I haven't ever seen anything like that, and it's really an interesting setup. The problem I've got with it, there's what appears to be a diaphragm under here. The odds of that still being good is very unlikely. It is so nasty in there. I looked up toward the body of the carburetor, and there is green barnacles growing all over it, so it's going to be pitted. It's going to need to be soda blasted or sandblasted, I would think, at least. To get this fuel tank off, you have to undo the carburetor, and I think this bracket, there's another bracket under here, and all the linkage has to come apart. So this will take a significant amount of time to go through this thing and try to blast it and clean it and put it back together, get all the linkages right, and then I still don't know if it's going to run right based on the condition of that carburetor. So I have what I believe to be another option. Somewhere in here, in and amongst all this stuff, and then around the corner into the other building, I have got what I believe to be a new genuine Honda engine. I think it's like a 5 or 6 horse. I really don't remember. It's been a while since I laid eyes on it. And I don't even know where it's at. So I'm going to start, I'm thinking in the interest of time, depending on how long it takes me to find this thing, I think I'll be light years ahead just putting a new engine on the pump versus trying to get that old thing going and then dealing with potential reliability issues down the road out in the field. So I'm going to dig around and see if we can find this thing. The good news is I found the blessed thing. The bad news is it's not going to work. Wrong size crankshaft, wrong diameter, it's threaded, doesn't have keyway, won't work. So I thought I'll jump on Harbor Freight's website, see what they got. Well, it said my local store actually has one in stock, $150, not bad. I'll pay $150 just to not have to fool with that carburetor. So I go down there and I look at the display model. It's right size crankshaft, everything should just bolt right up. It says take this little card up to the counter to buy one. So I did. I get up there. She says, oh, we don't have one. Website showed it in stock. She said the only one we got is the display model. Do you want that one? I said, well, not for retail. I don't know how long that thing's been up there or who's been fooling with it. The flat key was missing from the crankshaft, so. And then the other girl walks out, oh, we can't sell our display models anyway. I was like, all right, can you order me one? I don't know. I said, is it something you normally keep in stock? They're pulling it up on the computer. 0 in stock, 0 on order. We don't know if we'll ever get another one. Unbelievable. So I guess we're back to fooling with this old thing. I guess I can put forth at least some effort to try to clean this garbage up. If all else fails, I can order one online, and I don't know what shipping would be, but what a mess. Went to take the fuel tank and carburetor off, and immediately the choke linkage bracket, which is just plastic, mind you, super brittle old plastic, just snapped with minimal force on it. I wasn't even, it looks like it's been broke a while or cracked. Anyway, I was taking a screw out, and with minimal interference from this piece of plastic, it just snapped right off. I'm done with this thing. I'm just going to order a new engine. We're going to couple it up and be done with this. All right, went ahead and ordered this one online. This is a 212cc Predator engine, which translates to, I don't know, like a 6 or 6.5 horsepower. Our old one's a 5, so it should handle this pump. If this one was doing it, it should handle it no problem. It actually came in really quick, like 3 days. So that was pretty cool. So now we're going to remove this engine, put a new one on here, and see what we're going to run into trying to get it coupled up. The studs had pressed so far up into the wood, I couldn't get them out without first getting the engine off, so then I had to fight the coupler, so that was great fun. All right, so we're going to pull this Lovejoy coupler off here. It's just a set screw holding it on. It should slide off. And I don't know that our keyway is the exact same size. I measured and it's pretty darn close, but I don't know if it's exact. So I'm going to pull this off of here and see what we got to do to mount it onto there. I'm going to attempt to use this puller to pull this part of the Lovejoy coupler. I've got a small 3-jaw that would be perfect for this, but big surprise, can't find it. So I've got this one here. I think it'll work. I'm going to place a washer up in here. The end of this crankshaft is threaded, and I don't want to screw up the threads, even though I'm not using this engine. The engine itself is still a good engine. I don't want to screw it up. So I'm going to place that flat washer up in there to protect the threads, and let's see how it goes. Need a spacer. There we go. Almost took my finger off, but that's part of it. All right, so when I bought this engine, the website had the specifications. They had the measurement for this keyway. So I went out and measured mine, and this one actually measured smaller than what they said this was. However, a little stroke of luck here, it's actually the exact same size. So that's pretty cool. I'm going to clean this coupler up, get it slid on appropriately, and I believe with this set screw I can place the coupler in such a manner that I may not have to drill new holes for the engine, because presumably they have the same, I don't know if it's an ISO pattern for these or what, but supposedly it should bolt up as long as I can get my coupler spacing correct. So here's hoping to that. Well, the bolt pattern for the engine was the same, but if I use the existing bolt holes, we're left with a gap here, and that's with the coupler fully engaged onto the crankshaft. I could move the coupler out, but then I'd only be about halfway on the crankshaft, which it would appear that's he wasn't fully engaged over here. He had more than half, but I wouldn't be comfortable with that. So I'm going to drill some new holes. Super easy. It's wood, you know, and we're going to close this gap, and we should be good to go. Don't want to run it too long when that pump's dry, but it started as easy as could be expected. Happy with that. Mounting it up was pretty straightforward, as you saw. My coupler is almost perfectly aligned. I can see daylight in between each one of these ears, so it's not in a bind or bottomed out on itself. And greased the seal here. So what you got here on this pump, this is kind of like packing on a valve. There's a seal right there. You're supposed to give it a shot of grease every 6 months or something. Who knows when the last time that was done. So I just gave it a shot and a half, and it come out there. The packing, I believe, is leaking a little bit, and I think that's why they had this rag stuffed under here. So may have to adjust it. It's adjustable here, but I don't want to do that unless it's running, so I can adequately gauge, how to do it without going too far. But overall, I now have a perfectly functional and mobile transfer pump for crude oil. The only thing I haven't done yet, I want to put some handles on this thing to make it easier to carry or to load. I'm not going to be carrying it around, obviously, but to load in a truck and out of a truck. And my first thought was just punch some holes here and put a piece of rope through there, tie knots in the bottom, and then you got an instant handle. The problem with that is having them knots under that board. I want this thing to set flush on whatever surface it's on, and with the bolts that go through it, the bolt heads actually pull up into the wood, so it still sits flush. But if I had them rope knots under there, it would be, kind of weird. So next time I'm at the hardware store, I'm going to grab some thread-in eyes with like lag bolts on the end. You just thread them in, and then I can tie my rope to that and have handles. Now, some may scoff about mounting this configuration to a 2x12. Of course, I could make a carriage for it out of steel with handles and all that. It would be pretty darn heavy. The benefit of using this is it's a little bit lighter and it's easier to work with. I don't have to do no welding. It's easier to drill, so forth. And most of all, it has been used like this with that other engine for the better part of a decade without any problems. So nobody's going to tell me this doesn't work. Now, this isn't a pump that runs 24/7. This is an occasional use pump. So it doesn't get used that often at all. And I'll show you what it is used for. So here's what it will look like in practice. I can use this flatbed truck, or I can put this setup in the back of a pickup truck. Whatever truck I'm using to pull that rig over there. And this is the setup that I take to what I call exploratory wells. Those are wells that I haven't been on before, so I don't know if they have oil in them, or if so, how much, because I don't want to drag my big tanker out there until I know I'm on a good well, because that would mean 2 trips. I'd have to pull the rig out there, then I'd have to come back, hook up to the tanker, drag it out there, not knowing if there's oil, or maybe there's only a couple, 3 or 4 barrels or what have you. It's just a little bit much to have to make all those trips and do all that work. Whereas with this setup, I can hook the rig up to this truck, drive out there. If there's oil, I can pump it from the reservoir into that 300-gallon tote. The rig has its own pump to empty the reservoir into the tote. And then let's say that, the well only has 2 barrels in it. That is, obviously not enough to justify the big tanker. So then I'll go to the next well. Maybe it only has 3 or 4 barrels in it, and so forth and so on. And then I can simply turn on my pump here when I get ready to empty the tote of crude oil. And this will pump directly into the tank battery, whichever tank battery is on the lease at the location. Or let's say I fill this tote all the way up and I'm still going good with the rig, still producing oil. Then what I'll do is I'll come back and I will pump out of this into the tanker, hook up to the tanker, and go back out to the well and just produce into the tanker. Because I know I'm in good oil. Odds are it's going to be, 20 barrels, 50 barrels, sometimes 100 barrels. And so that's the idea behind this, just to save me time, save me trips, and make it more efficient for wells that don't have very much oil in them. And the nice thing about using this truck that's got a 12-foot flatbed is, let's say I'm in some good oil and I want to come back and get my tanker. I don't even have to unload any of this. I can leave all this on the truck, hook up to the gooseneck with the tanker, and I'm gone again. Now right here, I can make this a little bit shorter. The problem with that is the exhaust blows out on this side and it will melt through this tote. So I put a little space there to give me some room so the exhaust doesn't melt the tote. But I could make adjustments here, or even put it on a 90 and then turn the pump this direction, just whatever is convenient at the time. So that's one more little mini project down. I'm one step closer to getting ready for the work that I got coming up. Next, I'm gonna show this tanker some love because it's done turned pink. I can't have that. So probably gonna clean it up, paint it, go over the engine. I think I need to put a tire on it, so there'll be some work going on there. And next, I'm gonna get the rig out. I've got to pull this bucket off of it and get it stretched out in the sun, get it to relax. There's all sorts of reasons for doing that I've covered before and I'll cover again. Also need to fix the generator that's on the rig. Ethanol gas was the death of it, so I'm gonna try to salvage that. And then we'll pretty much be ready to go. So I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you guys in the next one.